R, 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 R.
Welcome to Keep It Real, everyone. I'm Shea Neal alongside with me, Parker Testa. That was the greatest intro I've ever heard in my life. Oh my goodness. What was that?
We don't know, so don't ask.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I feel bad for the people that didn't join right off the bat. Oof.
If you were just now joining us, rewind and watch the first 10 seconds.
That was so great. I was sitting here trying not to just die.
Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Oh my goodness. What a start to the show. Happy Cheerleaders Tuesday. Parker, we've got like a week and a half left of this show.
It's crazy. It's been a fun summer, but we've done so much fun stuff. We've talked about, across the board, NFL coaches, ice cream, sodas, fast food,
guitar solos to kick off shows.
and going across the realm of the sports landscape. And we're not done. We still have Big Ten conference preview, SEC conference preview. We have a fantasy football mock. All will be done live in studio next week, so don't miss it.
Well, absolutely. And we're going to start off the show before we get into our first tier list. We have two really good tier lists today. We have Hall of Fame running backs, and we have Adam Sandler movies. Adam Sandler, obviously one of the greatest comedy actors of our generation, and he's been in a lot of really good movies. So we're going to rank them. I love movies, you love movies, and we both like Adam Sandler, so it seems like a match made in heaven. We are going to actually start off the show talking a little bit about, the fun weekend we had at Take Flight. But before we do, since we started off the show just so beautifully, I want to share something with our listeners. And if you follow either of us on Instagram, you've already seen this picture, but we made it perfect. And we're excited for you to see. Parker, why don't you tell them a little bit about our R&B group?
So this is our R&B group, Cookies and Cream. Features myself, Shea. The man in between Shea and I is Trent.
Trent's
and then down on the bottom on the left, we have Marcus, who's awesome. And then on the right down there is Mason. So this is just, the goated group of the entire weekend of Take Flight.
Right.
Plus, there's many more. Everybody who has a Take Flight this weekend was amazing and the nicest people. But the select few made the weekend spectacular.
This was the core five, if you will, and I mean, like you said, I mean this was a pick that we just took on the last day to just be stupid, and it turned out to be one of the greatest pictures we've ever been involved in, and so we did what we had to do. We put a black and white filter on it. We added the parental advisory, logo, and now it's one of the 5 best album covers I've ever seen in my life.
Yes. And it's literally something I threw together in like 8 minutes, but it's the greatest thing that this show has quite possibly ever seen.
Right. And since, in case people were wondering, this is the title of the first album, Soft Serve. We are Cookies and Cream. Our second album will be titled Double Stuffed. So, I mean, be excited. We're changing the R&B game. But we have 7 tracks ready for the first album, Parker. You want me to rattle them off here for the people?
Go for it.
So our number 1 hit single, that's, coming soon, One Scoop. And Parker, let me just say, I mean, this is my personal favorite. The greatest person I've ever met in my life, Chris Hogan, helped us come up with this song. You only get 1 scoop of Cookies and Cream, and that 1 scoop's all you need.
Yes. Anything more than that could be overwhelming and could cause pain. So only 1 scoop.
So we have 7 tracks, like I said, on this album. 1 scoop, Backs Against the Wall, Took Flight, and then our Take Flight friends will love this. Alive, Alert, Awake, Enthusiastic. This is
all separate songs.
Yep. This is going to be an album for the books.
Yes. It certainly is. There's so many awesome things came out of this weekend. This is quite honestly the best thing.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I love, we joked about it with Mason yesterday. We said, for those of you watching on YouTube, you can judge for yourself. But I said, how do you simultaneously look like the biggest wimp in the group, but also like, the biggest tough guy in the group? I don't get it.
He does for sure. But couldn't have met a nicer guy. Mason's one of the coolest people out of this, weekend. Everybody was awesome, like we said, but Mason, he went to get coffee with us at the WWSU studios. I mean, just a heck of a dude.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, you already hinted at Marcus. I mean, Marcus is a legend. Marcus is just absolutely iconic. And I mean, the fact that Marcus went up in front of everyone, Marcus is, incoming freshman, but Marcus went up in front of all these presidents of all these orgs and gave, a speech when he really didn't know that he was going to give a speech. And I give him a lot of respect for that. So not only is he a super down to earth dude, and I'm glad to have met him, and, we're friends now. But he's also, a really talented on the rise leader. I mean, this guy knows what he wants to do with his life, and he's really, really good at getting the best out of people.
He is, and everybody talked, extensively, which is what this entire weekend was about our different organizations, how we lead them, how we can learn from each other. And Mason was, right in the thick of it.
He was for sure. That entire group was great. I mean, we spent like an hour and a half on Friday night out at a bonfire just talking to Trent, and Trent was one of the staff members. He wasn't even there as an org leader. But like you hinted at, so many cool people that we interacted with this weekend. I mean, obviously we've hinted at a few people that we know on this show already this summer. Mackenzie Heffernan, obviously the editor-in-chief of The Guardian, just absolutely unbelievable with what she does. She's honestly one of the, not just three or four most talented people I've met at Wright State. She's one of the 3 or 4 most talented people I've met in my life. I mean, she's like, I don't know. You see a lot of different good traits in a lot of different people. You see people that are, very intelligent. You see people that are very good with people. You see people that are very family oriented. You see people that are, very comfortable in difficult environments. Mackenzie is one of the few people that I've met that like have all of those traits working together. She's insanely intelligent. She's insanely passionate. She's insanely motivated. She's so good leading a team. She's just the nicest person in the world because she tolerates the two of us. So, she's great. She was there, obviously, but so many people that we hadn't really met before until this weekend. Kyle's just an absolute stud. Don't get me started about Chris Hogan, absolute legend. Hopefully he's coming in soon to record some liners with us, and you'll hear his voice on the airwaves because this dude's just an absolute baller. Some other people, that we got to meet throughout the weekend. How great was the red team, Parker? How goated was the red team? We had Kyle, we had you and me, we had Brittany, we had Anna, we had Chris as our staff leader, and then we had Holly with the Guardian. And like I said, after this weekend, Holly might be my favorite Guardian member, just because red team wins.
Red team does win. And I know everybody said this weekend that, especially, Jeremy, who was the great guy who put the entire event together this weekend, said that nothing was a competition, but everybody knows that red team took the cake this weekend.
Jeremy's talking out of his butt. Jeremy didn't know. Jeremy knew it was a competition. And it's safe.
Everybody knew.
I will say that there were a lot of really good teams that were there. There were. You had, it was a tough competition. With yellow, you had, the Battle of Greek Life. You had, Deschanel, who's just unbelievably involved with her sorority. You had, Destiny was one of the better staff leaders as well. Green team had a very dynamic duo at the top in Mackenzie and Marcus. The blue team had Dylan Collison, who's the business manager of the Guardian, and Jeff, who's the UAB president, which is the largest org on campus. That was a duo I was very scared of. I saw they were on the same team on Friday, and I'm like, you know what? We might have some tough competition here. And then Purple had the SGA student body president, Jonathan, who's a great dude. But they also had Mason. They also had, Jewel. And so a lot of really talented people on every team. So it was not an easy win. But at the end of the day, the red team did take the cake. So red team represent.
Yeah. So, and I know we've gained a few listeners to this show out of this weekend. So we appreciate all of you who.
And if you're not on the red team and you're listening to the show, we do still like you, but just not as much as the red team.
Yes. And, of course we appreciate you listening, and we appreciate all the knowledge that you gave, everybody this weekend. I know, I'm sure you guys I took things from us. I know you said you took things from us, but we took, more than we ever could have thought from all of you this weekend. So thank you for all of that. And thank you for listening to this show. And after that first 10 seconds, I don't know why you would continue, but we appreciate
you can expand that to, first 8 minutes, because we also looked at an R&B cover. Oh, man.
It's true. But great weekend overall. Met so many cool people.
Absolutely. Two things I really took away from this weekend for sure was one, I just saw your Snapchat story. Oh, man. And for those of you that are listening, here's what it says. If you don't listen to tomorrow's edition of Testa and Neal, Keep It Real, which if you're hearing this, you are listening to it, so congratulations. We may not be friends. The first 10 seconds of the show is the best part of the whole day. Absolutely. Well, it's a little bold. I mean, we still have an hour and 45 minutes where we could top it, but you're probably probably not going to top it. Oh, man. What's great? Oh, man. We should have started the second hour off with it, because we have a director's meeting at 2:00, and that would be the start of the second hour. We could all be in the director's meeting out in the lobby, and they'd have to listen to it.
Man.
Well, maybe we'll come back for hour number 2 doing the same thing.
I'm down. Let's do it.
But no, going back to what we said about Take Flight, 2 things I really learned this weekend. One was just how many connections that I just hadn't made on campus. I mean, I'm a pretty introverted person. I knew that I didn't know everybody, but I realized that I really only was taking advantage of probably 5 to 10% of this organization or this campus's leaders. And the fact that I just know 50, 60 new people after this weekend is just a huge thing, because, I'm probably not going to be able to collaborate with all of them, but just to be able to know all of them, be able to support all of them, and be able to just say that they're good people. It's a good foundation. And another thing that I really was pleasantly surprised with this weekend, I thought it'd be a fun time, but I showed up on Friday not really knowing what to expect. This was my first time ever going. And I thought there'd definitely be moments that I was uncomfortable and, not really enjoying it as much. But it was just a blast start to end. I mean, couldn't have asked for much more. And like you said earlier, Jeremy, he may not have said it was a competition, which he's wrong. But he did a really, really good job putting this event together, and it was an absolute blast. And the only thing I regret was that I waited until my last year of college to go, because I wish I could go for another year.
Yeah, and like you said, there's so many great organizations on campus, and they're incredibly lucky to have, the leaders that some of these organizations have. And one thing that really stuck with me out of the whole weekend is we had like a debrief, wrap up kind of conversation with our teams on Sunday afternoon. And one thing that was said was about WWSU is, one of the members of our team said, I've walked by your offices so many times and have, never went in there because I didn't know I could. But after, talking to you guys this weekend and getting to know you a little bit, I feel like I can come in there anytime. And that made us feel fantastic. And that goes for any of you, even if you're not a Wright State student. If you're just coming by and you're curious about what we do, and even if you just want to take a look in the station or the studio, by all means, come in, say hi, talk to us. I mean, we love visitors, and we're happy to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like you said, and I mean, if she's listening, shout out to Anna, the president of Kappa Delta sorority, one of the biggest sororities on campus. So it's not like she's struggling for an extremely important position on campus. I mean, she's one of the top student leaders on campus, no doubt about it. And I mean, every conversation we had with her this weekend, I mean, her actions backed it up. I mean, she's just unbelievable person. But yeah, I mean, it was just definitely something different where, I mean, I'm very thankful for some of the friendships I have with like Dylan and Mackenzie and, Jeff and some of these people that I interact with on an almost daily basis. But when you hear good things from people that you really didn't know, it hits differently. I mean, if I hear Dylan say that he thinks I'm doing good things, I mean, I appreciate it because I really respect him. But at the same time, Dylan and I have known each other for years, and I feel like he's just, I feel like he wouldn't intentionally go out of his way to hurt my feelings, like he'll tell me when he'd do something different, but he wouldn't tell me that he thinks I'm doing a bad job. to hear somebody who had only known me for 48 hours, actually less than 48 hours, say that, your org was not in the best spot when you took over and you're doing really good things and you're putting it back on the map and people are interested in getting involved again. I mean, that's one of the best things you could ever hear.
Yeah, it is. And to, like you said this, numerous times this weekend, we tend to not give ourselves credit because we feel like we're just doing our jobs and what we're set out to do. But it tends to when other people tell you you're doing good things, it speaks volumes and it makes us feel like we're doing what you say we're doing. Because like you said, sometimes we don't feel like we're it feels like we're just chugging along and just doing what we do every day. But but when you get that recognition, it feels very good. So we appreciate all of you who said to both of us that we're doing good things, because in our eyes we're just having fun, and to tell people, and to hear from people that we're they think we're doing good things, it's awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, it's something that's really, really an experience that I didn't know I needed to have, because like you said, I'm so incredibly hard on myself, where I'm guilty of constantly just shooting for the stars, big picture goals. And that's a good thing, I think, long term. But short term, it's definitely very deteriorating for me mentally, in the sense that I just always think I should be better than I am. And that's not a good mindset to have all the time. So it was a weekend that I didn't know I needed to have as much as I did, where just people that are just good people noticed my passion and love for this station and took it as an opportunity to, tell me that, hey, you can't be a superhero all the time. You're doing some really good things, but it's not going to be an overnight fix. You need to just kind of take a step back and appreciate what you've done so far, reset your mind, and keep going. So, I mean, obviously the relationships built was the highlight of the weekend for sure. But I took a lot away, just advice wise, from a lot of these leaders. I mean, I'm 22 years old. I was probably one of the oldest people there, that wasn't a staff member. But I've only been a president for 3 months. So I'm one of the youngest in terms of presidents, in terms of how long I've been there. And it just meant a lot to me to hear some of these presidents that have been there for 2-3 years just give me some of that advice of like, hey, I know you want to, change the world and leave a legacy that, you made this org the best org on campus, but it doesn't happen overnight. And you need to kind of just take a step back and realize how much farther along you are than you were back in May.
Yeah, it's really, it feels good to hear things like that, and um, it's a credit to the help that everybody else gave us this weekend, because we thought we were doing all right before,
Mm-hmm.
but we've taken so much out of this weekend that we can bring back to WWSU and continue to do what we finish what we started,
Right.
and to make to make us one of the top organizations on campus, which is ultimately the goal. We think that we are now, but there's always room for improvement. It's that mentality of never settling.
Right.
You can always strive to get better. So and that's like you said, relationships made and the people met this weekend was obviously the highlight, but the goal of the entire weekend was to learn new things and take things away from others, and that will certainly accomplish this weekend because
Yeah.
all the great people that were a part of it this weekend.
Mm-hmm. And you said, I mean, something that we've talked about, I think, on this show, but definitely off this show. We think we're doing good things. We think we're going in the right direction. We are excited about it, but you never really know until other people give you that feedback. And that's why we've been so eager, so anxious for Fall Fest for first weekend, which is less than 2 weeks away now. And I'm stoked.
Crazy.
But just to hear, I mean, every person in that room over the weekend, whether they were a president, a vice president, a treasurer, a council member, whatever. I mean, they're all just insanely talented people that are in really, really high positions, powerful positions. And the fact that we got that positive feedback that like, hey, I've seen WWSU on campus for 3.5 years, and this is the most engaged, this is the most interactive, and this is the most, positive that the vibe's ever been. That's what we really needed to hear, because we can believe it all we want, but we're the ones that put the ideas in place. We obviously want them to be successful, but when other people start to think they're successful as well, that's, like you said, we're on cloud nine.
Yeah, and it like you said, makes us feel spectacular. So if you haven't seen any of the stuff we're doing, go check out our social media. Come see us at the the WWSU studios. We'll show you around.
Come see us at Fall Fest if you're guys.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk to you about what we do. If you want to get involved with us, you can of course do that. We'd love to have you. But
a little bit of a spoiler here, but we partnered with UAB along with the Wright State Bookstore and Wright Pat Credit Union to put on Fall Fest. So you show up to Fall Fest, not only unfortunately, our WWSU t-shirts I don't think are going to be ready in time for Fall Fest, which sucks. But we're going to also be doing a Halloween party. We're going to have plenty of time to give out shirts throughout the year. And like Parker said, you can come visit us in the studio. Come visit us in the studio. Tell us, hey, I saw you at Fall Fest. The shirts weren't ready. I was hoping I could get one. That's all you have to say. We're happy to hook you up with one. But the Fall Fest official t-shirt, gray, Fall Fest on the front. On the back, you'll see UAB and WWSU side by side. And that is something I'm really, really excited for, because that tells me that we're on a really good track forward. UAB, biggest org on campus. And in a lot of ways, it's Wright State's baby. I mean, this is the org that puts on almost every event. This is the org that has, some of the top revenue every single year. They raise so much money for the university. And it's an absolute honor and an absolute privilege to be able to partner with them, not just for this one, but we're also doing a couple more events with them throughout the year. But this is going to be really exciting. I'm really excited to put on Fall Fest with UAB along with Wright Pat and the bookstore. But their president, obviously, Jeff, we talked about him. Unbelievable dude, great dude, good friend of mine. But I'm really, really excited to get back involved with UAB, and I think that's a huge step for WWSU.
It is, and we appreciate everybody who's involved with getting this Fall Fest together. We're going to see so many new faces on campus. We're going to see the same faces on campus, and we're just excited to get back to whatever normal is now. And so and having Fall Fest, in person and to go and meet people and not only from our side of it but from a student side, to come see all the orgs, to come see meet some new people, meet all the people that really make Wright State what it is. So
right.
Come see us. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we are. I promise I'm wrapping this up because we have 2 tier lists to get to today. But I mean, it's just an absolutely. It was just a great. I'm a very shy individual, and I think my biggest takeaway from Take Flight, was that I would have never known who these people were if I hadn't gone to Take Flight, because I'm not the kind of person that would be able to just walk up to somebody and just interact with them. I've probably seen a lot of those people at orientation events, at recruiting events, all that kind of stuff. Never talked to them because I never had to talk to them. I only talked to a handful of people that I, interact with on a daily basis. I mean, the Guardian, great people. And I really like interacting with them, even though I give them a hard time a lot. It's just, I think Mackenzie and I summed it up really well this weekend. We compete a lot, but it's because both Mackenzie and I love competing at the highest level. And I think that we push our orgs in the best way possible. And WWSU constantly wanting to be better than the Guardian makes WWSU better, and the Guardian constantly wanting to be better than WWSU makes the Guardian better. So I think, it's really competitive, and at times a lot of people probably think that Mackenzie and I hate each other, but it's at the end of the day, I think it's just, it's a really good competition for both orgs.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, I never would have, talked to any of these people, other than the people I knew going in. if I wasn't thrown into a room with them and forced to talk to them, which is essentially what happened on Friday. Yeah, just so many awesome people that were there this weekend. Like you said, people I never would have talked to if it wasn't for Take Flight. So, and coming out of it, we both know that there are people that can help us with whatever we need to.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And even like I said earlier, we're not going to be able to collab with every single org that was there. It's just not realistic. But even with the orgs that we can't collab with, I mean, we support them, they support us because we know each other's leaders now. And sometimes, I mean, it's good to do events. It's good to have, collab projects with other orgs, but sometimes it's just good to, say, hey, I got your back and you got mine. That's a big thing. And WWSU is slowly, branching out and making a lot of friends with a lot of orgs on campus. And I mean, that's step one to being one of the top orgs on campus, is to not have any bad blood with anybody. And another org that I don't think we have bad blood with, but it's not as strong as it could be, is SGA. And I've talked to Jonathan, our student body president, really, really good dude, by the way. If he's listening to this, I mean, really, really good dude. I'll get into the talent show in a minute. But he took a lot of heat on Saturday night, and he handled it like a pro. And so he's a really good dude. He's, I'm sure you noticed throughout the weekend, Parker, but something I really took away is this guy is just absolutely natural in front of people. I mean, this guy, numerous occasions throughout the weekend, just got up, spoke what he believed, spoke what he, what he stood up for, what he believed in. And I mean, he won the room over. I mean, this is a guy that's, he's going to do really good things as SGA president, because I mean, he's a natural with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, he comes in, and it's, almost every single conversation we had, he was up, he was talking, he was, voicing his opinion. And if somebody said something he didn't agree with, he spoke his mind. And that's something that, I respect a lot. Another thing I respect is the dude has, tremendous charisma.
Oh, he does.
The dude's hilarious. He did this news comedy skit that won the room over.
It's okay.
And Shea, we just said we can't start stuff. But heck of a dude. This campus is tremendously lucky to have a guy
this campus
as their student body president.
Right. This campus is full of really good dudes and really good, just really good people in general. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I've only had one or two conversations with him before this weekend, but heading out of this weekend, I mean, I'm excited to see what he accomplishes. And I want to do more stuff with SGA. So I'm hoping, and we got to talk more about this in the future, but fingers crossed, I'd love to do a show this fall with a couple members of his cabinet or his House of Representatives. And they just talk about, some of the decisions that they make for the good of the student body, some of the, some of the discussions that are had that goes into making some of these decisions, putting in some of these, regulations and stuff like that. So I think it's a win-win. I think it improves our relationship with SGA and gets us interacting with them more. And I think it's a win for the campus because they have a resource where they can constantly hear all the updates with student life and with student government and all the decisions that are being made in that process, instead of just kind of being blindsided by the decision. They get to hear why we're making this decision, what's going into this decision, what's going into this process. So I think it's going to be good for both us and SGA. We get the content, we become a resource for students and the campus as a whole, and they become more transparent with the student body than they've ever been before.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's a win-win for everybody. This is what Take Flight was all about. Student organizations working with other organizations. It's what the entire weekend is. Building trust, building relationships, building, leadership skills, whatever it is. That's what the entire weekend was about. So, and we came out of it, better people. We met better people than us. We met, so many great people, and so many great organizations on campus are in the best of hands.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, we're about to jump into this first tier list, but Parker, I will say this post that Marcus put of cookies and cream on Instagram is blowing up. It's going insane right now. Look at this. That's 4 comments already.
it's one of the top tier posts that we've that I think Instagram has ever seen.
It's already been archived on my phone.
Yes, it's gonna be saved, among everybody this weekend who I think was at Take Flight. This is fantastic.
The Mount Rushmore of Instagram posts. That one's on it.
Yes, gotta be.
No, yeah, and I mean, last thing I'm going to talk about, because we've spent half an hour on this, and I really do want to get into our tier list today. But just like you said, I mean, I never would have interacted with any sorority fraternity president, any IFC treasurer, any NPHC committee member, whatever. I really, for my entire tenure as sports director and really my first couple months as GM, have interacted with The Guardian, UAB, and SGA very briefly, and a couple orgs here and there as needed. But I leave now knowing the president of Rainbow Alliance and Kirsten. She's absolutely awesome. I leave now knowing, a lot more about our student body president, Jonathan. Really good dude. I know a lot more about our team leader, Parker Brittany. I mean, she's great. I mean, just an outstanding person. I mean, it feels like in every single situation throughout the weekend, she knew exactly what to say. And I mean, that's what being a leader is all about. I mean, Anna, unbelievable. Unbelievable conversations with her. And what I respect a lot about her is that she has that balance of, she knew when she had to be serious. She knew when she had to step up and be, in control of the situation, but she also knew when to kind of sit back and just have a good time and crack some jokes and stuff like that. And that's something I really try to be as well. And then, I mean, we touched on him a little bit, but one of the goats of the weekend, Kyle, I mean, just an absolute stud. Went in not even knowing who this guy was and leaving. I mean, him and Chris stole the show this weekend. And I mean, it was just an absolute blast. And I will throw out a shameless plug. I think it's safe to say that I was the host of the talent show along with Chris. I don't want to say it was the best talent show in the history of Take Flight, because I can't say that because I haven't been at all of them, but I think it's firmly in the top 5.
Gotta be. Anytime that Rowdy Raider makes an appearance at an event, it's top 5 anything.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah, it was a total blast, and it went exactly how I expected it. Cracked a couple jokes. Everyone laughed. I thought I did pretty solid, like solid 8 out of 10. But Chris Hogan ran circles around me because that dude might be the funniest dude on the planet. I think a good metaphor I said earlier, Parker, I was a very solid Joe Davis on the night, which if you know baseball, that's the Dodgers play-by-play commentator, really, really good at his job. I think I was a solid Joe Davis on the night, but unfortunately, Chris was Vin Scully.
He was. Your performance was okay, but no, you did a good job. But Chris stole the show. He did. And
Rowdy stole the show too. Let's be real.
He has the to have the preparation for when Rowdy Raider shows up to immediately pull up the fight song and have the whole room go nuts was fantastic.
Legendary.
So yeah, that was one of the highlights of the weekend for sure.
Yes, it was. All right. Well, we're 30.
We should probably talk sports.
34 minutes into this. Let's share the screen. And we're starting off today's show, Parker, with an NFL Hall of Fame running backs tier list. So it's not as many names as we normally do, so we should still be able to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. But we do finally know who all of these guys are, Parker. It took us a little bit to look up everybody. I had no idea that this was Tony Dorsett. This did not look like a Cowboys jersey to me. And I will say that I lied. We don't know one of these guys. We don't know who this is. It looks like a Dolphins jersey, Parker, but Ricky Williams isn't in the Hall of Fame, and that's the only Dolphins number 34 I can think of.
Yeah. And yeah, I really don't know. It's that picture is more than likely Ricky Williams, but I don't know why it would be on this list if he's not in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know. Well, Parker, we're going to start off with a guy who, in my opinion, is the greatest running back in the history of football. Now, this is a debate. Obviously, Barry Sanders, Eric Dickerson had an unbelievable career. Guys like Jim Brown, obviously one of the greatest athletes of all time. So many really good running backs. But in my opinion, Parker, the greatest running back of all time, will instantly be dragged to S tier because he's, without a doubt, one of the three best running backs of all time. Walter Payton, sweetness. He's at the top of my S tier. In my opinion, the greatest to ever play the sport at that position.
I'm with you. Sweetness is sweet. He's awesome. The guy, unfortunately had passed away, prematurely, but the guy was an unbelievable player. The '85 Bears wouldn't have been the '85 Bears without Walter Payton. The guy, was just an unbelievable, ball handler. It was took care of the football very well. Was insanely fast, and it was just the stereotypical running back that every team wants. So I'm with you here. I think Walter Payton's got to be up there as one of the best of the best.
Yeah, and I mean, there will probably be people that look at this, tier list and don't agree that he's the greatest running back of all time, and that's fine. But like I said, I think 99% of football fans will say he's top three. And if you don't have Walter Payton in your S tier of all-time running backs, I'm sorry. I just don't think you're watching football the right way.
Yeah. And you got to have him up here. There's the select few that are automatically up there as the best of the best in the history of football at that position. With quarterbacks, everybody knows who the top three and top five ish are. You have Brady, you have Manning, you have Aaron Rodgers, you have you go down the list of the Breeze. You go down the list of guys that are the best of the best at their positions, and Walter Payton, if you know football, is in that list every time.
All right, Parker. This next one, I could totally see you agreeing with this. I could also totally see you disagreeing with this. This is really hard for me to do because all of these running backs are obviously legends. They're in the Hall of Fame. But this is a guy that I think a lot of people are going to have one tier higher than I put him. Emmett Smith, the all-time leading rusher in NFL history, I'm going to put in A tier. Top of A tier, one of the best to ever play. Not disputing that. It's obviously incredibly difficult to be the all-time leading rusher in NFL history, but I'm going to put three guys in S tier, Parker, today, and Emmett is just my fourth guy on the list, and I think the three that I'm going to have in S tier deserve to be a tier higher.
This is really tough.
I know.
This is so hard. I got to put him in S tier. He's the leading rusher in NFL history, and if you don't have him at the top, I have to put him up there with sweetness. I mean, the guy's has ran for the most yards in NFL history, more than anybody in football, and was one of the core pieces of those Cowboys teams of the '90s with Aikman, with Michael Irvin, among others. Emmett Smith was in that, in the thick of things as well. So I got to put him in S tier here.
Yeah. I get that. I mean, it was really hard for me to put him at the top of A. Like I said, he's the fourth best running back of all time in my eyes. I just think the top three are a little bit better. And I'm going to finish up my S tier to kind of back it up. So the three guys I have in S tier, Parker, in order, okay? We're going to do this in order. Walter Payton's the greatest running back of all time. Second is Jim Brown. Best football player in the history of the Cleveland Browns, without a doubt. One of the most athletic running backs ever. One of the most dominant running backs ever. He could outrun you. He could run over you. He could catch the ball out of the backfield. He could probably throw the ball, too, if he wanted to. This guy's just an absolute stud. And he's the second best running back of all time in my eyes. And then the third and final guy I'm going to have in S tier, probably the best Detroit Lion of all time. That's right. I'm talking about the one, the only, Barry Sanders.
Barry's in my S tier as well. And so is Jim Brown. Those are the four for me in S tier. Walter, Emmett Smith, Jim Brown, and Barry are my four in S tier. all four of those guys deserve recognition as to why they're the among the best of all time, and all those guys have Hall of Fame resumes, obviously, or they wouldn't be there.
Right.
So
Right.
All four of those guys are fantastic players, of course, but yeah, in my order would probably be. Walter 1,
Okay.
Barry 2, Jim Brown 3,
Okay.
and then Emmett 4 would be my list for that.
That's fair. I just flip flopped Barry and Jim Brown. I have Jim Brown 2 and Barry 3, but I have Emmett 4 as well. I just think he's like an and like he's like an A+ tier, but I can't put him in an S just because I think, just in my opinion, Barry, Jim, and Walter were just a little bit more dominant. I know Emmett has the record, but Emmett also has like 4 more years played. So Emmett's still one of the best to ever do it, obviously, or I wouldn't have him in A tier on a Hall of Fame list. But the 3 that I have in my S tier were just, without a doubt, in my opinion, the 3 best running backs of all time.
And it's valid, and it's certainly true, and I'm sure there are many people that would agree with you. And so this next one's interesting because I'm curious your thoughts on him, and that's Jerome Bettis.
Jerome Bettis.
Where would you put Bus?
Well, this is going to be really hard, Parker, because there's going to be a lot of guys on this list, like Marcus Allen, like Thurman Thomas, Terrell Davis, some of the greatest running backs of their generations that we put in B and C tier just because they don't have the resumes of some of the guys that we have in S and A.
Right.
For me, the Bus was really dominant in his prime, but his prime wasn't as long as some of these other guys. So I'm going to put him in B. I think he was really dominant. I think he was really good. He could take over football games, obviously, and he's in the Hall of Fame for a very good reason. But he just didn't have the same prime that guys like Emmett and Barry and Jim Brown had. So for me, B tier running back, love the Bus. One of the few Steelers I actually respect, but he's going to be B tier for me.
Yeah, I'd probably put him in the same spot. The dude was just massive, ran everybody over. They didn't call him the Bus for nothing.
You get a nickname like the Bus as an NFL running back. Like, I mean, what's a better nickname, the Bus or the Fridge?
It's very, very close. Those two nicknames are top tier. Bus is certainly. I think he's the best Steelers running back of all time.
I agree.
And he's certainly had a tremendous career. Like you said, his prime wasn't as long as some of the others, but when he was in his prime, he's sure as heck made an impact.
And when he was in his prime, he was probably what? He's probably the second best running back in football, right? Behind LaDainian Tomlinson, maybe.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, we'll get to LT in a few minutes. I love LT, so
do I.
But let's get to this next one. This is going to be a tough one for me, Parker. I'm torn on it, and that's going to be OJ. And now, obviously, OJ ain't necessarily the greatest guy off the field. You can say he did it. You can say he didn't do it. We don't really know. But the fact that he put himself in that position tells you that he's not exactly the greatest guy ever. So I will say, though, really, really good football player. Won a Heisman. In the Hall of Fame as an NFL running back. So for me, I think I'm going to put OJ in B as well, but I think I'm going to put him higher than Jerome because even though I think Jerome's a stud, I just think OJ's just got a slightly better resume.
I do too, and we're not going to get into.
No, I don't want to get into what OJ did off the field or didn't.
We're not going to get into the judicial system and whatever. We're not getting into it. We're not talking about it.
Nope.
This is strictly basing his football career. Sure, you can knock him down for being a questionable human being, but there's no argument that he's one of the best running backs that to ever walk the earth. He's had tremendous play in Buffalo. Really good in throughout his career. So he was fantastic for sure. He's in B tier for me. I'd probably put him ahead of Bus as well, just because of the one of the fastest running backs to ever see to see the field too. So OJ, shady person, fantastic running back.
Got really close to accidentally saying a word. Woo! Oh man, we're about to have to hit the dump button live from WWSU.
You know me. I know what I can and can't say.
Well, we do now. We had a little incident.
Yes. Early in the summer, we had some problems, but we've ironed that out.
Yep. Next guy is a guy that I don't think is necessarily underrated, but I think he's underappreciated sometimes. Eric Dickerson. This is a guy that was just, he was the bus before it was cool. I mean, he trucked over dudes all day long. He had the goggles. How cool are the goggles on Eric Dickerson? He was blazing fast for a dude of that size too. And if you've ever played the Madden video game, Eric Dickerson's one of the best running backs you can ever have on your ultimate team. So Eric Dickerson for me, very strongly in A tier. I can't put him over Emmett because Emmett's the running back king of all time in rushing yards. But Eric Dickerson's very easily an A tier for me. Dude was a stud and had a very long and successful Hall of Fame career, obviously.
This one was close with me because if I didn't put Emmett in S tier, I would have put Eric Dickerson in S tier. It was between one of those two guys. I just had to go with the guy that's the all-time leading rusher. But so ED is going to be my first running back in A tier because he was fantastic, like you said. Insanely fast for his size. The goggles made him so much cooler than everybody else. People say goggles suck. I say the opposite. Goggles are the coolest. I think the coolest thing that an NFL player can have. Mm-hmm. You can argue that the visor is cool, and sure, visors are cool depending on the player, but goggles are top tier, and they're really cool on players. And the only player in football that wears goggles now is Blankenship. The Colts kicker.
He's pretty cool.
It's cool. He's the biggest dork on the planet, but he is so cool. But yeah, Eric Dickerson, one of the best running backs of all time, no doubt about it. And he's got to be top of A tier for me.
And I think when we're all said and done, we still got a lot of really good running backs to get through on this list. But I think this is going to be my top 5 running backs of all time at the end of this. Walter 1, Jim Brown 2, Barry 3, Emmett 4, Dickerson 5. I mean, every football fan has a different opinion, but for me, I think there's a pretty decent gap after those 5. Those are the 5 best running backs in the history of football for me.
I think I'm in the same boat as you are. There's guys that come close, but the legendary status of some of these 5 guys it's possible we'll never see any other players like these guys again. Mm-hmm. And it's possible we will never see numbers put up like some of these guys have.
Right. Agreed. Parker, I'm going to let you take the lead on this next one. I'm curious your thoughts. A guy that had a very, very great career, but it was a very, very short career, only 8 seasons. A lot of people didn't think he played long enough to win or to make it to the Hall of Fame, but he did win 2 Super Bowls with the Broncos and John Elway. Where are you putting Terrell Davis? TD.
I'm putting him in B tier. I think he's that's tough. I'd probably put him in between Bus and OJ.
Okay.
I just think I just like the way TD played better. He was faster. He was more agile. Granted, Bus is a top tier nickname, and he just ran people over, which was a lot of fun to watch. But TD's game was different. He was shifty. He was fast, and he was just a lot of fun to watch. So he's in between OJ and Bus in B tier for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I think TD's a stud. TD should have probably played 4 or 5 years more than he did. Unfortunately, injuries kind of derailed his career a little bit, but glad that he got into the Hall of Fame. A lot of people were kind of wondering, is 8 years, enough, even though he had the numbers. But happy to see him get in. I think it's deserved. I think the Pro Football Hall of Fame does a really good job in not necessarily going with the guys that have the numbers to get in all the time, but going with the best football players of all time. And Terrell Davis is a good example of that. There's running backs out there with better numbers because they played longer and had longer careers. But the NFL and the Pro Football Hall of Fame recognized that Terrell Davis is one of the best football players of all time and put him in the Hall of Fame. And I think that was a great decision.
Yeah, I think it was too. He's got to be there. I mean, the guy helped win 2 Super Bowls with John Elway and those Broncos teams. So he's got to be here. He's one of the more entertaining backs in the history of football. So I think he's got to be in the Hall of Fame, and I think he deserves to be there.
Now, Steelers fans aren't going to like me for this next one, Parker, but I got to do it because, like I said, we're comparing Hall of Fame caliber resumes. That's why we don't have a D or an F tier. You can't put a Hall of Fame running back in D tier. That just doesn't happen. But Franco Harris, one of the most infamous plays, or I shouldn't even say infamous, one of the greatest plays in NFL history, the deflection or whatever you want to call it. It was tipped and caught by Harris off the ground. He ran it for a touchdown to win the game. Franco, though, for me, I know it was a different era, but he was just more of a fullback for me than a running back. He didn't necessarily run the ball as much as some of these guys. Now, he was a bruiser, don't get me wrong. This guy ran over guys without a doubt. And he proved on that play that he had really good hands. But this was a guy that did a lot of just kind of blocking and protecting the quarterback, Terry Bradshaw. So for me, Franco's still a Hall of Fame running back. Franco's still a really, really good player. But compared to some of these other guys, he's going to be my first C-tier running back. Steelers fans, I'm at ESPN Shea Neal on Twitter. I will see you there shortly.
They're going to come at you. And
I know.
This is tough. I'd probably put him in the same spot. You could argue, and I know some people
You could argue end of B for sure.
I know some people will be very, very, very angry with me since I'm about to say this, but you could argue that he is in the Hall of Fame because of that play. And I would probably argue that. And Steelers fans are going to come at me. I know I probably will get a phone call from my uncle if he's listening to the show today, but a Steelers fan. But he, like you said, he's a bigger guy, more of a blocking guy. You could argue that he had a better build to be a tight end than a running back. But he's C tier for me. I just don't see. He doesn't have as much talent and as greater numbers as the guys above him.
2 things. One for the Steelers fans that are yelling at me right now, and one for you that I'm just curious about. Steelers fans, I get that Franco Harris is your baby, and he had the greatest play in Steelers history, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, you got to admit, Jerome Bettis was a better running back than Franco Harris. I mean, Jerome Bettis, like you said, Parker, Jerome Bettis is the best running back in Steelers history. There's no doubt about that.
He is.
If Le'Veon Bell had a longer prime, we could be having that debate. But Jerome Bettis is the best running back in Steelers history. Now, I'm curious of your thoughts on this. I think almost every Steelers fan is going to say that the Franco Harris play is the greatest play in the history of the Steelers. And that's a fair play to say. My opinion, the greatest play in the history of the Steelers is the toe tap catch in the back of the end zone by Santonio Holmes to win the Super Bowl. It's so close. They're both generational plays.
There are 2 plays in that Super Bowl that you could argue as some of the more game-changing plays in Steelers history.
James Harrison's pick six,
and that Santonio Holmes catch.
That's one of the most iconic images in recent memories of the NFL. James Harrison with the 102-yard return, and then just laying gassed in the end zone, just so exhausted from that run back.
Yeah.
Didn't one of his teammates tackle him into the end zone because he was about to fall over?
I think so. They might have given him an extra shove.
Yeah.
But man.
I know I'm a Buckeye fan, so it probably sounds biased that I say Santonio. And I wasn't alive for the Franco play, so I can't appreciate it like I appreciate the Santonio play, but one of them was the AFC divisional round, and one of them was the Super Bowl, and one of them was the game-winning catch in the Super Bowl. Like, come on. I hate Ben Roethlisberger with all my heart, but that was the greatest throw of Ben's life. Right on the money.
There are plays that aren't sure they're huge plays. One of them that comes to mind that's really significant, huge plays. Maybe not in the biggest moment, but a huge play. The Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary to Richard Rodgers, to beat the Lions. That was insane. The DeAndre Hopkins Hail Mary last year, insane. But there are plays that maybe aren't as beautiful or aren't as insane, but the moment, the circumstances make it so much more impactful and so much bigger. And this play has both of those things, in that the moment was insane. It's the Super Bowl, but the throw by Ben, the catch by Holmes was just as crazy. I think I'm with you. I think that's the greatest play in Steelers history.
I feel like it has to be. I mean, like I said, the Cardinals had all the momentum at that point. Kurt Warner had taken that team down the field, threw it to Larry Fitzgerald for a touchdown that put him ahead. It looked like the Cardinals were going to win the Super Bowl. Kurt Warner was going to ride off into the sunset. Larry Fitzgerald was going to get his ring. That throw by Big Ben changed a decade of football. Larry Fitzgerald, if the Cardinals held on to that lead, Larry Fitzgerald would have been like 27 years old in the prime of his career, the best wide receiver on the planet, and just won a ring. Larry Fitzgerald could be, for all we know, if the Cardinals win that game, Larry Fitzgerald might be on Jerry Rice level right now. We don't know. So, like I said, I hate Ben Roethlisberger. He's one of my most hated players of all time. Can't stand the guy. But that was the greatest throw of his life, and Santonio Holmes made the play of his life to be open in the back of that end zone and drag the feet.
Yeah, he did. And they play classic games on the NFL Network every so often. And if that one's on, I will sit there and watch the whole game because it was one of the better games.
Super Bowl. Mm-hmm.
It was one of the better games in Super Bowl history. And it was just a lot of fun to watch. All the way through. So this one was, you got to argue that was the best. I think that's the best play in Super Bowl history. And not Super Bowl history, but Steelers history.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, the immaculate reception or deflection, whatever you call it, was a great play. But like he said, it's in the divisional round. You to take you to the AFC Championship.
Yeah,
and that's obviously
a big play, but it's not a Super Bowl game winner. It's not a Super Bowl walk-off.
Yeah, and that's a big play, but you got to think about the moment here.
Right.
You're in an AFC divisional, but this Holmes play wins the Steelers the Super Bowl.
Right. It's like our favorite sport is baseball. It's like saying Brandon Belt's home run in the NLDS to knock out the Nationals versus David Freese's home run in the World Series. It's like, yeah, that Belt home run was really big. Yeah, that was a huge hit by Brandon Belt that kept the Giants' World Series hopes alive. But David Freese quite literally put the team on his back and won them a World Series. So, I mean, it's all about the moment. Franco Harris, that's one of the greatest plays in NFL history. There's no doubt about it. But Santonio Holmes dragging his big toe in the back of the end zone with 23 seconds left to win a Super Bowl is a better play, in my opinion, just because of the moment. Franco Harris, that play got you to the AFC Championship game. That game got you out. That game got you to the Final Four. That's great. But Santonio Holmes hit a half-court shot to win the national championship. It's just two different moments.
Yeah, and it's valid reasoning that the Franco Harris play was we're not saying that it was a bad play. We're just saying that the San Antonio Holmes play was better. And Steelers fans can be mad at us all you want.
I'm a Bengals fan. Steelers fans are mad at me 24/7. I'm used to it. So we got one more. We got time for one more before we get to break, Parker. I want to do a guy that one of the better running backs of the early history of the NFL, and a guy that is a legend for those undefeated Dolphins team, Larry Zonka. What are you going to do with big old Larry?
This is hard. The problem with a tier list like this one is you hate putting guys in certain spots because you feel like you're disrespecting them. But all these guys on this list are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Man, I'm probably going to put Zonka ahead of TD behind OJ.
Okay.
I think he's a massive human being, and he was crucial in some of these in these Dolphins teams. But we're just going to keep going back to this point because it's so true in that he doesn't have the numbers that and the the legacy that the top 5 guys had.
Right. And that's kind of my thought process too. I was going to put him at the top of C. And it's just because his numbers aren't the same as some of these other guys. In his career, Larry Zonka has less than 2,000 carries. That's, TD, he has more carries than TD, but TD only played half a career. He has the 4th fewest carries out of any Hall of Fame running back in NFL history. Guys like Emmett Smith, the all-time leading rusher, has 18,000 yards. Zonka on his career, if I scroll down here, has 8,000, 10,000 less than the all-time leading rusher. So yeah, he played for the greatest team in NFL history. He was a very big part of that team, the greatest team in NFL history. He won 2 championships. He made 5 Pro Bowls. He had a great career, but compared to some of these other resumes, it just doesn't stack up. And for me, he's top of C tier. I have him ahead of Franco because he played for an undefeated team that's the greatest team of all time. But yeah. I can't put him ahead of some of these other guys because the numbers just aren't there.
It's valid, and I'm with you. It was a wide range, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt and put him at the top of that range. But like you said, he gets more and more recognition, and he gets more recognition because he was on those the Dolphins teams, and one of them had to went undefeated. So you get more recognition than you might deserve. But I'm not saying that Larry Zonka was a bad player by any means. But like we keep saying, there's just guys on this list that are better than he was.
Right. All right. Well, that's it for hour number 1. We're gonna do what we did last week here for us, and that's just pause the show on YouTube so we can take a break on WWSU. But that doesn't impact us recording here. So. We're going to pause right now on WWSU so we can take our legal ID break. We'll be back in just a moment. Make sure you keep it locked, and we will see you on the other side. All right, welcome back to Keep It Real with Testa and Neal right here, hour number 2. We're continuing our NFL Hall of Fame running backs. We also have a Adam Sandler movie tier list to get into today. It's Tier List Tuesday. Parker, I want to start off hour number 2 with a guy that I really, really loved play the game of football. This is one of the greatest high school athletes in the history of sports, probably the greatest running back in the history of Texas. And he continued it all the way to hit the Hall of Fame in his NFL career. He doesn't have the greatest numbers out of any running back in NFL history, but this was a guy that was a winner and a dominant athlete from high school, college, and the NFL. I'm talking about Earl Campbell. What do you want to do with Earl Campbell? I think for me, I'll go first. Why not? I'm going to put him at the top of B. Earl Campbell's a freaking beast. He never won a championship, but 3-time first-team All-Pro, 5 Pro Bowls, only a 7-year career. So he only had 2 years where he wasn't a Pro Bowler. Yeah, maybe the numbers aren't there, but I'll tell you what, Parker. For a 7-year career, this guy walks away with 9,400 yards and 74 touchdowns. That's an average of, approximately 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns a season. That's stupid. Earl Campbell, and he's, like I said, it's between him and Kyler Murray, the 2 greatest high school football players in the history of Texas. I know Kyler's, the new guy. Kyler's the guy that went, Kyler went, 48-0 or whatever in high school with 3 state championships. And his senior season, I think he had 50 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I get it. Kyler was stupid good in high school. But maybe, call me a boomer or whatever. But I think I'm gonna die saying that Earl Campbell is the greatest high school football player in the history of Texas. Just watching him run back in the day, it was just different.
Yeah, and he was. I'd probably put him in the same spot. Just dominated, the high school ranks of Texas, and continue that through college and into the NFL. So. He's going to be at the top of B for me as well. The guy was just, a just dominant back.
Yeah, and I mean he was a big dude. He was only 5'11", but I mean Parker, this guy's built a lot. Like I think this guy was, you know how I said Eric Davis was Jerome Bettis before it was cool. I think Earl Campbell was Eric Dickerson before it was cool. Like this guy and Eric Dickerson are built very, very similar. Not the tallest guys in the world, but my goodness, was Earl Campbell just physically gifted. He was just so jacked. He was a tank. Every time he ran the ball, it was like running into a full speed SUV. How do you tackle that?
You don't. But it's insanely, the guy just ran people over. And a small back, but a shorter guy, but he was built, and not only was he built, but he was fast. And people forget that. So Earl Campbell at the top, a B for me as well.
All right, well, let's move on to a guy that I really, really like, and this is going to be a guy that I think I put maybe a little higher than a lot of people do, but I think he has the numbers to back it up. I'm talking LT. LT, 3-time first-team All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler in 10 seasons. In his career, Parker, a little over 3,000 carries, but almost 14,000 yards, 145 touchdowns. That's second all-time. LaDainian Tomlinson, in the prime of his career, was the best football player in the league. No doubt about it. Any position. LT was the best player in the NFL for about a 4 or 5 year stretch. For me, maybe this is a little ambitious, and I'm not putting him higher than Dickerson or Emmett, but I think I've got LT in A tier.
I'm with you. I love the way LT played. He was really big for those Chargers teams. Of course, they never won a Super Bowl, but they were always good. They had Vincent Jackson, they had Phillip Rivers, they had LT, and they had some great players on that defense as well. Those Chargers teams were really good. And LT was just a big part of that. His numbers are, outstanding. One of the more fun players, one of the more fun running backs to ever to watch. He was great in San Diego, and then he went to New York and continued to be a lot of fun. So he's A tier for me also.
All right, well, let's move on to another guy that I really, really like on this list. And this one's going to be so hard for me, Parker. Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers is like maybe the toughest guy on this list for me to rank, because I think he's one of the 10 best running backs of all time, without a doubt. But he only played like 6 seasons because he got hurt, and I don't know what I want to do with him. Let's go over his numbers really quick. He had 5 seasons, like I said, but he was an first-team All-Pro in all 5 of those years. 5,000 yards, 39 touchdowns, which over a 5-year career is an average of 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. And I mean, this guy is just, he was one of the best football players of all time. Parker, he earned the nickname, the Kansas Comet. This guy was just unbelievable. So I know that he got hurt and did not play the career that he should have played, but he was an impact player from, his first season in the league. And I think he's better than a lot of guys on this list. So for me, he's going to go in B, and he's going to go here. I think Campbell's got the better resume, but I think my argument is that Gale Sayers was a better football player than everyone else in B.
I think so too. And he was one of the more dominant players that in the Bears franchise history. Obviously,
I'm not saying something because you think about it. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you think about it. Gale Sayers is the second best running back in the history of the Bears, and that's a really dang good second best running back in the history of your team.
It is, and to go on to say that Walter Payton's the best running back of all time. In both of our opinions, we talked about that already. But Gale Sayers, like you said, insanely good number 2 to have, and he'd be a 1 on most teams in the NFL. But with Walter Payton as your best back on your team, Gale Sayers is a solid number 2. I'd probably put him in the same spot.
Now, this is going to be a harder one for me because I don't think that this guy was ever the best running back in the league, but he was consistently really good for a long career, and that's Curtis Martin. Curtis Martin, you could argue, is a borderline Hall of Famer. Maybe he shouldn't have gotten in. 11 seasons, only 1 first-team All-Pro, 5 Pro Bowls, but look at this, Parker. In his career, 14,000 rushing yards, 90 touchdowns. That's on pace. That's similar numbers to guys like Marshall Faulk, guys like, minus the touchdowns, LaDainian Tomlinson. Very similar numbers to Jim Brown. Was Curtis Martin ever dominant like Jim Brown? Heck no. But he's got numbers to be a Hall of Famer. And, I mean, that's got to earn some bit of respect. So, for me, Curtis Martin, I'm going to put right here. I think OJ was better, more dominant on the football field. But Curtis Martin has a really impressive Hall of Fame resume. And I think he's earned the right to be very solidly in that B tier.
I think he has too. He was a lot of fun to watch, especially, with how, dominant on the field he was. I'd probably put him. It's tough. I'd probably put him in the same spot, but him and OJ are very, very similar players. But OJ just, I think, has the better resume, like you said. So I probably put him in the same spot.
Okay. Well, next up, let's get Marcus Allen out of the way. Marcus Allen is another, just one of the best high school running backs of all time. I mean, Marcus Allen's a stud. 12 seasons in the NFL, two-time first-team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, 1-time champion, 12,000 yards, 123 touchdowns. That's third all-time. And he's really, really good. And I think we're starting to clog up B tier, Parker, but I mean, it's very similar guys in a very similar tier. For me, I'm going to put Marcus Allen right here ahead of O.J. Simpson. I think O.J. was very dominant on the field when he played, but I think at the end of the day, how I view these two guys, I mean, obviously O.J. has really, really good numbers over his career. There's no hiding that. But I think in a lot of ways, Marcus Allen was a more consistent version of O.J. Simpson. O.J. was maybe the more dominant football player, but Marcus Allen was equally as dangerous and way more consistent. And that's why he gets the nod for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you here. And OJ was a great player, but Marcus Allen just ran over everybody. And he was lightning quick, lots of fun to watch, for the Raiders and the Chiefs. But, certainly one of the better players that this league has ever seen is Marcus Allen. So he's probably in the same spot for me.
Parker, I'm going to let you take the reins on the second best Cowboys running back of all time. We talked about the second best Bears running back of all time in Gil Sayers. I'll let you take the lead on Tony Dorsett. Now, we'll run over his numbers really quick. He has almost 13,000 rushing yards, 77 touchdowns in 11 seasons played. He was a one-time champion, a one-time first-team All-Pro, and a 4-time Pro Bowler. So take with that information what you will. Solid resume. Is it the best we've seen today? Absolutely not. But is it good? Yeah, for sure.
Probably going to put him in between Marcus Allen and OJ. I think he's a solid player for sure, and was a big part of Cowboys. He is a big part of Cowboys history, and has some great numbers, and was certainly one of the best running backs of his era. So he's going to be right here in this spot for me. I like him.
I do too. Man. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for him. I do. So this is where it gets hard, Parker. I mean, we're getting down to the final guys, and this is going to be really tough for me to kind of pick guys here. Let's do Leroy Kelly. Leroy Kelly played, obviously, with the Cleveland Browns throughout his course of his career. He has solid numbers. If you look at him, I mean, they're not spectacular, but they're good numbers for sure. 74 touchdowns, 7,000 yards in 8 seasons, 3-time first-team All-Pro, 1 championship. This is a guy, it's a lot like Franco Harris. He was more of a fullback. He doesn't have the running back numbers that some of these other guys have, but it was a different era of NFL football, Parker. I mean, we don't see a lot of, 11, 12,000 yard backs in the early stages of the NFL minus Jim Brown. And that just tells you how good Jim Brown was, because Jim Brown only played, if you look at it, Jim Brown only played 9 seasons in the NFL and had over 12,000 yards. That's stupid. And that's why, in my opinion, he's the second best running back of all time. But I think Leroy Kelly is very, very similar to Franco Harris. And I'm going to give Franco the edge to make Steelers fans a little less mad at me. I think that Franco was the better blocker. and I think that Franco has one of the greatest plays of all time. So Franco earns the nod. No disrespect to Leroy Kelly, but when you look at some of the other resumes that we've seen today, it's not one of the better ones.
I'm with you. I think, as good as Leroy Kelly was, it just goes back to the old adage that we've been talking about all night, and that there's players that are better than him on this list. Certainly in the Hall of Fame because he was a great player, but players on this list are higher for a reason in that they were better players.
Yeah, they were. Man, we're getting into really tough, territory now. This is really, really hard. I'll let you take the lead on Thurman Thomas. Where do you have Thurman Thomas? Thurman's got a really, really good resume. If you look at Thurman's resume, I mean, Thurman, a lot of people don't think of Thurman Thomas as one of the best running backs of all time, but this guy's got the numbers to be in that conversation as one of the best running backs of all time. 12,000 yards, 65 touchdowns is a little light, but this is a guy that played 10 seasons in the NFL, 5-time Pro Bowler, and 2-time All-Pro. I think this is a sneaky, sneaky debate for a top 10 running back in the history of football.
Yeah, and probably put him at the top of C.
Okay. Ahead of Campbell?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I changed my mind. We're going to put him in between OJ and Dorsett.
Okay.
I think he's certainly a solid player, and he has great numbers and like you said, a great resume. But I just can't put him ahead of some of these guys that are considered some of the best ever.
Right, and this has been the tough part for me, comparing some of the best resumes of all time with who I think are some of the most dominant running backs of all time. Where, I mean, it's no secret that Emmett Smith has a better resume technically than Barry Sanders. But Barry Sanders was more dominant than Emmett Smith. I mean, Emmett Smith is one of the best running backs in the history of the sport, but Barry Sanders could make everyone on a football field, professional athletes, look like 5-year-olds, any single play. So I think it's just, I favor who I think were the best players of all time over the resumes. I think, in my opinion, it's why I have guys like Gil Sayers over guys like Marcus Allen and Thurman Thomas and Curtis Martin and guys like that who have better resumes. But at the end of the day, I think I'm ranking these based off of who I think were the best football players.
I think I am too. And Thurman Thomas was great, of course, but there are guys at the top of this list that are the best of all time at their spot.
No doubt about it. Let's do Floyd Little with the Denver Broncos. Now, Floyd Little had a really solid career, but again, one of these old school guys that just does not have the same numbers as some of these new school guys. He played 9 seasons in the late 60s, early 70s, 1-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, 9 seasons, like I said, 6,000 yards, 43 touchdowns. Parker, this was a different era, and I mean, this guy was one of the best in the league in his time. This is another case like Leroy Kelly, like Franco Harris. It's just not the same numbers, not the same resume that we've seen from some other guys. So for me, he's another one of these C-tier guys. And caught in a different era where some of the the numbers just don't look as impressive.
No, they don't. And I think as we go down this list, it's going to be a similar story for the rest of these guys. They're all great players, of course, but they just don't have the numbers or the resumes that some of these other guys have.
Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough. I don't know what I'd do. I'm really torn on how I want to go about this. We're getting to a spot where we're really grasping for straws here, I guess. I think that this is really, really, it feels wrong that I have Hall of Fame running backs in a C tier, Parker, but that's just where we're at right now.
Yeah, and it sucks to put these guys, rank some of these guys lower than what they should be, but these are all Hall of Fame guys, and like we keep saying, some are better than others.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's do this next guy on the list. That's going to be John Henry Johnson. John Henry Johnson is another guy that just, I don't think has the same stature of numbers that some of these other guys have. If you look at his numbers, we'll pull them up here. But John Henry Johnson just wasn't the same dominant force that other guys were in his era, or in future eras, I should say. And that's just going to be another reason why I think I throw him in the same boat as guys like Leroy Kelly and guys like Floyd Little. I still think Franco's the standard here out of these C tier guys. But it's just, and it's not their fault. They just played football back, in the era where you weren't running the ball 35 times a game like guys like Emmett Smith and Walter Payton and stuff were. But I think when you're talking about that era of football, I mean, it's Jim Brown and then a big gap and then everybody else.
Yeah, and that's a tough bar. It's a really high bar, and this guy's a great player. He was, and it's all of these guys played in different eras, and like you said, there's an era where they were really heavy in the run, run the ball 35, 40, 45 times a game. And there's other times where they didn't do it as much. And I think, the guys that made an impact, big impact and did it with less opportunities are some of the guys that are, certainly good, but they just don't have the same resumes as guys that, that came either before them or after them, because quite frankly, some of the guys have more opportunities than others. So obviously their numbers are going to be higher, but all these guys are certainly deserving of being here, but it's hard to rank some of these guys when other guys have better resumes.
Right. Our final running back that we're going to talk about today is Jim Taylor. He ended his career with 8,600 rushing yards, 84 touchdowns, as well as almost 2,000 receiving yards as well. So 10,000 yards from scrimmage is pretty impressive. Actually, probably one of the better resumes we've seen from guys in this early era. So I'm going to put him right here behind Franco. But it's just another guy, like I said, the common theme. That really the only two guys that we saw today that could compete with running backs from the 70s on were Franco Harris and Jim Brown.
Yeah, and that's tough, for some of these guys because they're all great players, like you said. But Jim Taylor, based on what did in his era was, a guy that played very well. He's a strong player for sure, and dominant, but doesn't have the resume. And I think Franco has better, more notoriety and had some better plays. So Jim Taylor was great, but not as good as some of these other guys.
Oh, that was a really hard tier list, Parker. I just put Franco Harris in a C tier and Eric Dickerson and Emmett Smith in not a top tier. That felt really weird.
Yeah, for sure. And like we keep saying, this is hard. It's really hard. All these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. It was just really, and I don't know. I'm kind of glad that was our first Hall of Fame tier list of the summer because, like you said, it almost feels like we were disrespecting some of those guys who were some of the best in their positions in the history of the sport. But it's like, how do I compare Jim Taylor, who played in the late 50s, to Walter Payton, who's, like, in both of our opinions, the greatest running back in the history of the sport? Like, I'm sorry, Jim Taylor was really good in the 50s and 60s, but it's not the same story as Walter Payton or Barry Sanders or Emmett Smith or guys like that. I mean, it's just two different eras of football.
Yeah, and it's tough for sure because ranking some of these guys is tough. And like you said, it feels like we're just disrespecting some of them. But there are guys that are better. That's the reality of it.
Parker, let's get into our next tier list of the day. It's Tier List Tuesday, so that means 2 tier lists. Well, we're going to go for an Adam Sandler movie tier list. So we have here, this is a little bit different, okay? We've had never seen it. We've had a personal, a good, a bad, a pretty good, and then we have a top. This is going to be a one movie thing. Our favorite Adam Sandler movie. This is going to be our least favorite Adam Sandler movie, and this is going to be kind of not really good. So a lot of tiers here today, but we do have a personal favorite and a personal disfavorite as well, if you will. I'm going to start with it's very possible that I put this one as my favorite at the end. We will see. There's a couple that are up for it. But this is one of my favorites. And it probably is going to end up being my favorite, but Happy Gilmore is just unbelievable, and I love it so much, and I've watched it probably 25 times.
This is really hard for me. I think, man.
I think I'm just going to slide it up here. I think it's going to
be
my favorite.
I think it's my favorite Adam Sandler movie ever. No doubt about it. I mean, they don't make movies like that anymore. They don't. And it's hilarious. I watch it every chance I get. Because it's just that funny. I love golf so much, and I think that's why I love that movie so much. But it's the best movie for me that Adam Sandler has made.
It's definitely in that conversation. Another movie that I really, really liked, is the Grown Ups movies, Parker. And the first one was just hilarious, with obviously, the whole plot of them kind of going back to where it all began. The big basketball game. It's pretty good. It's not as good as Happy Gilmore, but it's pretty funny.
I'm with you. It's a solid movie for sure. I like it. Chris Rock is a very underrated part in this movie. This is a solid. I like this movie a lot. It's gonna be in the same tier for me.
And then Grown Ups 2, which is obviously the party that they throw. All the frat boys, Taylor Lautner's like the leader of the fraternity or whatever that crashes the party, all that stuff. It's still funny. I still like it. I've still watched it a few times. It's not as funny as the original though. So for me, it's just going to go in good. It's not this, I guess I'm considering this kind of like great and this is good. But it's still a good movie. This is like solid B tier if we're doing like letters, but I definitely prefer the original, but they're both pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a common theme with most movies. Very rarely is the sequel as good as the original, but and this is just another one of those cases, and that the first one was better. So I probably put him in good as well, but not as good as the first one.
All right, Parker, I'm gonna let you pick the next one that we do here.
I am very curious your thoughts on The Longest Yard. I love that movie. It's great. With some of the some of the actors. Michael Irvin is in this movie. Mm-hmm. Burt Reynolds is in this movie. Nelly is in this movie. So I'm gonna probably put it in. It's pretty good. I like this movie a lot. It's just a hilarious plot. I mean, really, prisoners playing a football game against prison guards. It's great.
For me, it's personally better than Grown Ups, I think, in my opinion.
I think so too.
And I know I'm a sports junkie, and that's probably biased of me, but I think Adam Sandler did a great job in this movie as Paul Crewe. And once again, another movie with Chris Rock just freaking stealing the show. But it was great. And I mean, like you said, just an all-star cast. How freaking funny was Nelly as Deacon Meggett, the running back? Or I'm sorry, Deacon Moss was the wide receiver. But I mean, who'd have thought Nelly was a running back in a football movie? That's so great.
And who would have thought Terry Crews as a wide receiver named Cheeseburger Eddie was also one of the top tier characters of that movie?
That might be my favorite scene in any movie ever, where he hits the guard in his nether region, and Terry Crews leans over him and says, "You always got to protect the McNuggets."
It's a great line. That's one of the better ones.
It's right up there with Swatowski saying, "I think I made him beep himself."
Yes, yes, and it's a great movie. And the plot of it is just great. So,
So funny.
and it's I'd probably put it ahead of Grown Ups. Also, it's fantastic.
Grown Ups is a really good comedy, but I feel like as me personally, I appreciate Longest Yard more.
Yeah, I think so too. The plot of Grown Ups was great, but I think I have to put Longest Yard ahead of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's do next. Let's keep it going with the absolute classics of Adam Sandler, and we're gonna do Big Daddy. This one's also really really good. It's gonna go in good for me. I like it, but it's not by any means my favorite Adam Sandler movie. It's a solid movie. I enjoy it when I don't watch it very often, so I enjoy it when I do watch it. But I just can't put it over any of the ones that we've done so far, just because I think I watch all the other ones more.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a great movie. Don't get me wrong. It's one of the more, relatable to life movies, if you will, that Adam Sandler's done. But it's a great movie for sure. I probably put it in the same spot.
Am I crazy, Parker, or can I not find Billy Madison? Where's that at?
I didn't see it either, and it's very disappointing. I don't see it on here.
Incredibly disappointing. Well, I guess we'll move on to The Waterboy then, and The Waterboy's another just great movie. It's gonna go right here for me. It's not as good as Longest Yard in my opinion, but Bobby Boucher may be the most dominant football player in the history of sports.
I'm not as high on this movie as most people. It's certainly hilarious. The concept of it's great. I mean, a water boy that they discover that he's great at football and then becomes one of the dominant linebackers in all of football is great. But I probably put it at the top of good in this tier list. But it's a it's a great movie. I like it.
It is for sure. I'll let you pick the next one, Parker.
Oh man. The week of.
Week of, okay.
This one is interesting. It's one of the another one that is very relatable to the real world. If you haven't seen it, Adam Sandler plays the father of a bride, and Chris Rock plays the father of a groom, and they're getting married, and it's about the week leading up to the wedding, and it's a solid movie. I would probably put it in. If there was a tier in between good and it's bad on this, I probably put it in. So
I was thinking the same thing. I was hoping I wish there was a meh tier.
Yeah. So for this one, I'm gonna probably put it at the bottom of good since there's not an in between.
Yeah. Here's what I'm gonna do. Before we do our next movie, I'm going to take this one and I'm going to delete it. And then I'm going to add a row above this. And we're going to do meh. There we go. On the fly. Oops. So there we go. We have a meh here now. And let me bring back the it's bad. Welcome to live radio, folks. It's our show. We get to do, however we want to the tier list. And there we go. Okay, we're good now. So now we just replaced, we just have it's bad and then the worst one and then meh. Okay. So next I want to do Chuck and Larry. This one's really, really weird. I don't know if there's a better way to put it than just really, really, really weird.
Yeah.
It's so the premise of it, like you said, if you've never seen it, it's came out probably like 3 years ago, maybe. No, it's been longer than that. It's probably been I mixed that one up with just the week of. It's probably been like a decade, but so there's like an issue with Kevin James getting custody of his kids, and he has to be married or whatever for it. So he marries Adam Sandler, and it's just really, really weird. And I mean, it's funny. There's moments that it's really funny, but it's definitely, I can't put it in good because I just don't like it as much as I like some of the ones that we've put in good. So it's just going to be another meh movie for me. I don't think it's bad by any means, but it's just really, really odd.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think The Week Of is a better movie than this one, but it's very bizarre, to say the least. Like you said, it's not bad, but would I watch it again? Probably not. But it's okay. It's just not the best.
Now this next one, I love this one, and I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but That's My Boy with Andy Samberg. This one's great. This one I probably like more than a lot of people. I love how Vanilla Ice got it on with the grandma of the guy at the end. So it's again really weird, but I think this one is my sort of weird a little bit more. So for me, this one's actually even going to go ahead of Waterboy. I love this one.
Really? Wow. I'd probably put it in good behind Big Daddy. It's another weird one, but it's less weird than Chuck and Larry. So I put it in towards the bottom of good as of right now.
Yeah. Okay. The next one I want to talk about is Click. Click's actually a pretty cool premise. Like I think that it was a cool idea. Sandler basically plays like an architect, but he has like this remote that obviously allows him to control the world. He can pause, he can play, he can fast forward, all that stuff. It had a really good cast. It had I'm trying to think. It had Christopher Walken. It had Henry Winkler. It had David Hasselhoff, Jonah Hill. It was a dynamite cast. It had a big budget, but it was okay. I don't think I liked it as much as some other people did, but it was okay. So I'm gonna put it at I think at the end of good.
Yeah, I think I'd put it ahead of for me where I had That's My Boy. Probably ahead of That's My Boy, but it's a solid movie. I like it. Like you said, the premise is interesting for sure. It's pretty easy to it's kind of funny the way it works out, but it's a solid one. I'd probably have it in good as well.
Okay, well, let's do the next one. Is one that came out probably about 5 years ago. It's called The Do-Over. It's on Netflix, but it's basically about two guys who fake their death, and then they become like they like become two different dudes, and so they find out that the dudes that they became are like their life is threatened, and I don't know. It's not my kind of thing, I guess. For me, I watched it on Netflix one night just because I was bored, and it wasn't terrible. But I mean, I expect more, I think, out of an Adam Sandler movie, and there's just so many more Adam Sandler movies that I watch in the first place. So this is going to be the first one that I haven't. It's bad. It's not horrible, but it's not great.
I like this one. I
Really?
do. I do. The concept's kind of strange, but I liked it. I'd probably put it in at the top of meh ahead of the week of. I think I like it more than most people. A lot of people thought that I talked to about this one is think it's stupid, which it's fair. I understand why people wouldn't like it, but I'm one of the I'm pretty higher on this one than most people are. So it's at the top of meh for me.
All right, I'll let you pick the next one.
Uh just go with it.
Okay.
So if anybody hasn't seen this one, Adam Sandler plays a doctor, and he oh man, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. You have to remind me, Shay. Uh, I know he plays a doctor, and they end up in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I like it. It's one of the better Adam Sandler movies, I think. I probably put it in good. In between Grown Ups 2 and Big Daddy.
Okay. Yeah, I think Grown Ups 2 is definitely better. I'd probably have it right behind Big Daddy, but
Yeah,
it's solid. Jennifer Aniston's obviously Jennifer Aniston. No more needs to be said. But it was funny. But like you said, he plays a doctor, and his assistant, like he gets his assistant, who's Jennifer Aniston, to help him kind of go out to Hawaii, and like, I guess I don't know what's the best way to describe this. He has his assistant try to help get him hook him up with this girl after his wife or after his fiance cheated on him. And then at the end, he just ends up falling for his assistant. But I mean, can you really blame him? I think we'd all fall for Jennifer Aniston too.
Yeah. It's solid for sure. We'll talk about this. This next one's interesting. Another Jennifer one he did with Jennifer Aniston is this murder mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it once. Wasn't a fan. I'd probably put it in. It's probably the first one that I'd have in. It's bad. I just wasn't, really a fan of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it wasn't the best for sure. So Parker, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's another one that's on Netflix. Like all of these Adam Sandler movies, I think are on Netflix. So if you just want to binge Adam Sandler tonight,
yeah, the ones that some of the more recent ones have been on Netflix. But yeah, this one I didn't like this one very much.
Yeah, no, what we should do, Parker, at WWSU is have a staff night where we all just chill in the lobby. Maybe we invite a couple of our friends from like the Guardian or Kappa Delta or something like that, and we just have a Netflix binge session of a bunch of crappy Adam Sandler movies.
I'm down for that. Sounds like a blast.
Order some pizza, have some popcorn. There you go.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do it. But yeah, no, I believe Adam Sandler in this movie plays a cop. And like they go to Europe, and then it's like you said, it's like this murder mystery. It wasn't my kind of thing. It like you said, it wasn't great. It's gonna be, I think, and it's bad for me too. It's not terrible, but I don't feel like wasting 2 hours of my life to watch it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. I certainly think that it's one of the one of the poorer ones from Sandler for sure.
Yeah. Now let's get to this next one. And I want to do anger management. Anger management, I thought was pretty funny. I don't know what you thought, but I thought it was pretty good. It was one of his earlier ones. I think it was like 2004, 2002, something like that. So it was it wasn't Happy Gilmore early, but it was one of his earlier ones. And it's about he has this big fight with his therapist, who is played by Jack Nicholson, which is perfect because those two were meant to be in movies together. But it's got a really good cast. It has as well Luis Guzman and Krista Allen, I believe, is in it as well. It's a pretty solid movie. It's okay, I should say. It had a good cast, but it's another one of these weird plots. It's a little too extra for me, I think, to put in good and just say I like it. But I think I put it in meh. It's okay. It's not something that it's just awful, but it's also not something that I go out of my way to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you. I probably put it in meh as well. I liked it better than Chuck and Larry. It's another,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah. It's another interesting, concept to it, but I certainly didn't mind it.
Nah, it wasn't bad at all. It wasn't bad. So this next one that I want to do is Jack and Jill, and this one's hard for me to make a decision on because this one I just flat out didn't like. And I'm debating if I want to put it in my worst one because we're starting to get to the point where some of these that we have left, I just haven't seen. So I'm going to have to pick a worst one, and it might be this one. We'll see. But this one is about they're twins. He's twins with, oh, God, who plays his twin?
He does.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah. So he's got like
so okay. All you need to know about this one, Adam Sandler plays a man and a woman at the same time in this movie. It's exactly what you're thinking it's like.
Yeah,
I promise you.
As you can tell, it's been a few years since I've seen it, just because when I watched it, it made me uncomfortable.
Yes, as it did everyone, I think.
So yeah, I mean, I think this is subject to change, but for me, I think this is probably the worst one I've seen.
I would agree.
I mean, I know Rotten Tomatoes has their moments of being tough critics, but Parker, they gave this movie a 3%. 3.
It's 3. Yes, out of 100.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good, folks.
And
I don't know if any of you are great at math, but I don't think it takes a mathematician to know that 3 out of 100 is not good.
And Rotten Tomatoes is really harsh, and I know a lot of people have talked crap about the new Space Jam movie and said it's really bad. But guess what? The new Space Jam movie got a 37% from Rotten Tomatoes. So according to Rotten Tomatoes, the new Space Jam is 12 times better than this movie.
Yes.
I've seen both. I'd have to agree. The new Space Jam is a lot better than this movie.
I have not seen the new Space Jam, so I can't give an opinion on this. But yeah, this Jack and Jill movie was not good.
No, it was not. It was just. Was Adam Sandler the producer for this? I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
Who thought it was a good idea to make him play a woman?
If it was his idea, I don't know what to tell you.
It just wasn't his best.
No, not by any means.
So we got a handful here left to go. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on Keep It Real Tuesday afternoon. Coming down the home stretch of the summer. We're going to do a few shows next week live in the studio. Just kind of send you out with, a bang. We're going to do a fantasy football mock draft, SEC Big Ten conference previews. I mean, it's exciting stuff. So it's been an absolute blast to kind of kick off Keep It Real this summer. But I made a joke earlier, Parker, that Mackenzie fell asleep and I called her a loser because it was like 10:30 and she just texted me back and it's 1:00 in the morning. So now I look like the loser, but I just think we have a ton of fun to get into. It's been really fun this summer to get the show going. I wish I had enough time and energy to do it year round, but I just don't. But I mean, we're still going to give you content all year long. On the Horizon's coming back for me, number one source of Right State Sports, which are coming back with fans. Just talked to, one of the athletic department staff over the weekend. They're going to be doing full capacity until they can't do full capacity. So, hey, if you want to bring your mask and feel more comfortable, be my guest. But we're going to try to pack McLean. We're going to try to pack the Netter Center, and we're going to try to pack Alumni Field. And I'll tell you what, as a broadcaster and as a Right State Sports fan, stoked.
I am too. We've been gearing up for this since March when that was the last broadcast we did. Shea, was that Horizon League Volleyball Championship. So, and that seems like it was forever ago. But in reality, it's only been 4 or 5 months. So we're getting back to it. Just a few weeks away is volleyball. And then we'll have club football not long after that. So we'll be there for both of those. You can catch all of our broadcasts on WWSU right here on WWSU 106.9, and we're going to try to do some live streaming for you this season. So we'll be live from the Nutter Center. We'll be live from McLean. And then we're a new thing this year. We're going to put all of our games, our matches, our broadcasts on YouTube. So you're going to be able to, if you miss it, you're going to be able to, go to YouTube, find the broadcast and listen back to it if you want to. So, just providing that we're going to provide the best possible content in all ways that we can for you. So really, really excited to get back to, calling games, back to Wright State athletic events. And I know you've experienced this, but I haven't. I'm so excited to broadcast with fans in attendance.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm excited about the whole YouTube thing because I've had fans ask me in the past hey, I couldn't catch the game today. Can you send me the audio file? And I'm always happy to do so, but it's hard to send an MP3 file via an Instagram DM or try to get an email or whatever. It's going to be just so much easier to send them a link to our YouTube channel. And I'm excited for not just us to get our content out there more, but I'm excited for our listeners because they now have a huge resource to listen to games if they can't make it live.
Yeah, and it's really like you said, we're providing the best stuff that we can, and last year was big for us, because we've told everybody that our ratings for sports broadcasts, almost they tripled last year because there were no fans, so they needed to find a way to watch or listen to the games. So, and we'll have people back at the Nutter Center, back at McLean. And we're going to do something that I don't think has ever been done at WWSU, and that we'll have watch parties for big games. So if you want to come down to come down to the studio, we'll have some snacks, some music in the lobby, and then you will all sit in there and watch our broadcast. So really excited for it. It's going to be a really fun year.
Yeah, it is. Let's get back to this tier list, Parker. We got about 8 minutes left here in today's show. I will let you pick whichever ones you've seen because there might only be like 2 or 3 more on this list that I think I've seen.
Yeah, we're getting down to slim pickings here on this list. I have seen Blended.
Me too.
I have seen that one. It's meh. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. I'm probably gonna put it in the bottom of meh. It's they play like Adam Sandler plays a single dad and I'm blanking on her name. What's that actress?
Drew Barrymore.
That's it. She plays a single mom. They go on vacation to one of the an Asian country, and the event. So it's about a vacation with 2 different families. It's not terrible, but not one of my favorites either.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's one of the weirdest and most random casts I think I've ever seen in a movie. It has Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore, Bella Thorne, Terry Crews, and Shaq.
Very, very odd to say the least.
But no, I'm with you. I think it's kind of meh. I don't know. Maybe I liked it more than I don't know. Nah. Chuck and Larry was really weird, but at least I could laugh at Kevin James. So I think it's going to go at the bottom of meh for me too.
I got to be honest with you, Shay. I don't think there's any other ones on this list that I've seen.
Really?
Unless I'm completely blind and can't see.
It is hard to see titles. I will give you that. I've seen 2 more on this list. So the first one that I've seen that I'll go over is 50 First Dates. This one's actually not bad at all.
I have seen this one.
Okay.
I have seen this one.
This
I couldn't see the title, but I have seen this one.
This is another one with Drew Barrymore, where Sandler plays a vet, and this Drew Barrymore plays a woman that has short-term memory loss, and so they keep just kind of going out because she keeps forgetting that they've been going out. It's okay. It's not my favorite, but it's okay. I'm gonna put it probably at the end of good.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's one of the more I guess rom-com movies that Sandler's done. I guess I don't know, but yeah, I didn't hate it, but it's certainly not one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, not by any means. And the only other I think movie I've seen on this list, from Adam Sandler, is going to be Funny People. I saw that one when I was really, really young. And I probably don't remember it very well, but it was okay. It was I think it's probably like late 2000s. I was probably like 12 when I watched it. I don't remember. But he's a comedian that like just found out he's gonna die. And so he goes on like this so I'm sorry. He's a retired comedian. He was a comedian, and he finds out that he has like this really rare form of leukemia. He thinks he's gonna die. So he goes back into stand-up comedy. And then he becomes like best friends with Seth Rogen, who's like this rising superstar comedian. So it's basically about them just being idiots the whole movie, which, I mean, I've watched worse movies than Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen being idiots for 2 hours. So, it's not bad from what I remember. It's probably meh. I don't think I liked it as much as Week of, but it's probably there. So, it was good. Seth Rogen's absolutely hilarious. But it's just not anything that I'd go out of my way to watch again. And then everything else on this list, like I said, I just haven't seen. So I think there were 29, if I counted correctly, 29 movies on this list that we had, which tells you, one, how old Adam Sandler is. But the fact that I've seen 18 of the 29 Adam Sandler movies on this list, I think is an accomplishment. So,
yeah, I'm with you. I have not seen Funny People, but 17 of 29 is pretty solid.
Yeah. I can't, like I said, I was like 12, so I can't remember if I recommend it or not. But if there's ever a night where you're just not doing anything and you want to just kind of chill out, take it easy, and just unwind, I mean, watching Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen be comedians for 2 hours is not the worst thing in the world.
Not by any means.
So, that was a good show. I mean, it was a little weird. Tier List Tuesday is always a little weird, but it was a good show.
Yeah, it was. We spent the first half hour talking about our great weekend we had, all the great people that we met, all the the great organizations we have on this campus, and the people that are running these organizations are people that I think are some of the smartest people and most passionate people that I've ever met in my life. They certainly are just they're just fantastic people, and they certainly hold not only their organizations but other people at best interests at heart. And it was just a lot of fun to meet so many awesome people and get to kind of learn from them.
Yeah, no, it was an unbelievable weekend. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to talk about it for 35 minutes if it wasn't an unbelievable weekend. So, anyone who listened today, whether you're just a listener of the show, whether we hung out at Take Flight, whatever, We do appreciate it. Thanks for a great summer. Thanks for, hanging out with us. Whether it's your first time or your 50th time, we do appreciate it. So before we call it a day, Parker, any closing thoughts before we move on to Wednesday?
I will end this show the only way that we know how to. And it's the exact way how we started this show.
Yay, let's go. Here we go. Everyone, hang on. We gotta get everyone ready. I'm gonna hit record. And we're gonna end the show with a bang. This is about to be just absolutely memorable. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been real. It has been fun. But until Parker plays this, it hasn't been real fun. We'll see you tomorrow. Send him home, Parker.
Arr.
Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.